Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So if you've been following along with the World Cup progress so far, you will know that we've made it out of the regional qualifiers, and so we are now into the group stage proper. So 160 players have become 48, split into 8 groups of 6. So yeah, we've got a pretty challenging group, I think it is fair to say. But yeah, when you get to this stage of the World Cup, there are no easy matches, so we just got to do our best. Top 2 are going to go through into the knockout phase. So yeah, we are up first in this game, and yeah, for a starting hand, I think this is pretty good. You know, my mind is obviously going to go straight towards the Nightingale in the hand and the Grackle in the tray, and yeah, full tuck very much on the menu when you have those 2 birds there. So you know, some other good options as well, I think. Obviously the Osprey, I think sometimes people look at that in a full tuck. Nuthatch is a pretty good forest bird, and equally that woodpecker, you know, if your Nightingale's going to get you plenty of food, then maybe the forest isn't so much something you need to invest in. But I'm really looking at this turkey vulture here just as a way of maybe supplementing a little bit the food source. Obviously kind of looking at some of these end of round goals, I'm thinking if I'm going to at least qualify or try and compete for these, having something in another habitat that I can lay eggs on is going to help as well. So yeah, I felt like that was a pretty safe keep. I mean, at the end of the day, if it's not something I want, it's always going to be an option for tucking under the Grackle. But yeah, it's kind of one of those where if your opponent does play an early predator, you can get that down. It just does help supplement the food source a bit. You know, having just Nightingale as your only food source, and obviously bearing in mind that you're always going to be giving your opponent food when you activate that. It can be a bit of a risk, and it can be quite slow. You know, sometimes you get to those 2 or 3 food cost birds. If it's going to take 2 or 3 turns to get the food to play those, that can really slow you down sometimes. So yeah, I have kept the Vulture and the Nightingale. Bird counter bonus as well, very nice. You know, if I am going to try and set up some kind of Wetlands full tuck, I'm naturally going to want to be playing lots of those tucking birds anyway. So if I can get a couple of extra points each time, that is definitely going to help me out. And so here we go on to our first turn proper. And yeah, no questions at all. Grabbing that Grackle. And yeah, as I said, just trying to look to get this wetland set up, start drawing some cards, start tucking some cards, and of course, getting a bit of food through the Nightingale as well. So on to the next turn. You see my opponent is already starting to set up a bit of a forest there, so yellow rumped warbler is pretty nice. But we're going to play this Nightingale, so I see this question come up sometimes when people are talking about full tucks and thinking about the right way to set things up. If I have a food source and a tucking bird, I always like to play the food source first, lay eggs on that, and then get the tucking bird down. And there's a few reasons for that. I think sort of chiefly having that extra egg is really useful, just as a way to help get more birds down. Maybe it comes into play for some end of rounds or anything like that. So definitely, yeah, I like to have that extra egg on the Nightingale in this case. Obviously, playing the Grackle is going to cost 1 of those eggs, but being able to sort of keep that extra on there longer term is going to help. And yeah, it's kind of no different to if you played the Grackle first. If you obviously laid eggs on that, you're then going to have fewer egg spaces available on that for when you're tucking and laying eggs. Sometimes what people do is they'll play the Grackle and then draw a card blind from the deck, and then tuck that, and then obviously use the egg they get to play the bird. I generally don't like that. I find that, you know, if you draw a bird that you want, I mean, obviously it's good because you've got that bird, but now you can't tuck and you haven't got that egg, so it can slow you down a little bit. Definitely for me, the safest way, as I've done here, is to play your food source, lay the eggs on that. And yeah, coming on to the next turn here, this is when you can look to play your tucking bird, in this case being the Grackle. And yeah, you kind of set yourself up nicely, as I said. Very open, very flexible. I'm obviously going to look to draw cards, hopefully find some good ones, use the Nightingale to get the food to play those. And so coming on to our next turn, you will see my opponent has indeed started playing some predators. So I was really, really happy. I felt very vindicated in keeping the turkey vulture. And yeah, just being able to put that down straight away as an almost immediate reaction, really, to this barred owl, it makes my opponent think a bit more carefully. Because, you know, if they're going to activate that, obviously they're going to get a point if it's successful, but I'm going to get food. And I think in the early game, to me, that food is worth more than a point. So, you know, if I'm in this position where I've got the predator and my opponent has the pink power, I'm going to be skipping that. So obviously, it's kind of a bit of a defense in a sense because, if my opponent wants to activate that, be my guest, give me some free food. But if they don't want to be giving me free food, they're going to have to skip, which I think is what they did in this case. So no free food, but it's definitely limiting the point scoring potential of my opponent. But we're going to draw cards, and we're immediately going to find a killdeer. And that's almost a little bit of Wingspan just laughing in your face, kind of saying, you set up this amazing wetlands with a food source and a tucking bird. I'm just going to give you arguably the best grassland bird in the game. So, a little bit of a tricky one there. Obviously, with the house rules, I can't play it until round 2 anyway. So my kind of thought process when I picked that up was, okay, I've still got 2 turns here. I've still got 2 spaces on the grackle. Let's just keep drawing cards. And, maybe I get a bush tier, or maybe I get something else that I can go and sort of commit with this full tuck. Or maybe I'm going to find some other really nice grassland birds, like maybe I find a junco. And that makes me think, okay, now I need to pivot away. I've had a number of games where I have this kind of start where you have a nightingale or a hummingbird or a crow alongside a tucking bird, and actually you can just use that in the first round to get yourself set up, get some cards, get some eggs and get some food, and then pivot away from that. But with the yellow-headed blackbird appearing in the tray, my mind was firmly on continuing on with this full tuck setup. So obviously I'm going to still keep the killdeer because, like I said, who knows what I might draw on this final turn of the round. But it's definitely looking like I'm not going to need to pivot away in this case. And that makes me happy. I love a good full tuck. I love a good wetlands engine. So if I can make this work, if I can go all in, get lots of wetlands tucking birds, maybe find another food source or just some other way of scoring points through this wetlands, I'd rather commit to that than sort of pivot away, as I said, and go for the killdeer. So my opponent there starting to get their wetlands set up, which is very, very nice. But now I've got this blackbird. As I say, it's kind of the decision here was, do I play it and do I commit, or do I have that extra turn drawing cards? I decided to commit here. I'm going to play this blackbird. I just know now for me going into this next round, I'm going to be getting 4 points when I draw cards. And obviously the egg space is going to fill up. I'm only generating 1 food a turn from the nightingale. Maybe I can get a bit from the vulture, but that's going to depend on my opponent. So really I'm going to be looking for maybe a crow or something to discard those eggs, or generally just finding cheap birds that only cost maybe 1 or 2 food that I can play and clear out some egg space. But really, really happy with kind of how this has gone in this first round. And really think this is a good foundation to hopefully build upon as we go into the second round. And of course, with those 2 eggs that we've got, thankfully the one's still on the nightingale, we're able to easily win the first end of round goal without even really trying. So that's 4 points in the bag. Very, very nice. And here we go into the second round, and look at what we have got in the tray. It is another tucking bird. So ring-billed gull, pretty lovely option here, pretty flexible on the food, so I can just obviously grab whatever I want with that nightingale. But even if this vulture is going to maybe give me some free food, I can look to play that as well. So I was kind of thinking, is my opponent going to take that? Maybe the red knot looks quite good for them as well as that second wetlands option. So I was kind of praying and hoping maybe that gull is going to get left so that I can look to pick it up. And indeed, they do go for cards. They leave the gull, but more importantly, they reveal the common raven. And I was kind of just laughing to myself at this point because, raven in tray, killdeer in hand, you kind of think to yourself, is this a grasslands pivot? But this is the raven that can go in the wetlands. And, I was just saying, maybe I'm looking for something to discard these extra eggs I'm getting. Crow is normally what you look for, but hey, raven is basically just a crow, but better. I'm obviously going to pick that up. And I think the ring-billed gull as well is going to be nice, obviously, for that extra tucking, the extra card cycle, the points, hitting the bird counter bonus card as well. But if I do go for both of those, it is going to mean tucking the killdeer. So this is really the key decision point for me, is do I stick with this wetlands? Do I go all in, play all the tucking birds? Or do I look to pivot away, go heavy grasslands with killdeer raven, which, as we all know, is just such an incredibly strong combination in that grasslands. But I'm going to draw cards, as I say, pretty obviously, and we are indeed going to pick up the gull and the raven, which unfortunately means bye-bye killdeer, you are going to get tucked. Your time has come. You have outlived your usefulness here. And yeah, we're going to obviously grab the rodent with the nightingale. And as I say, now I've got the rodent, I just need a couple more food for the raven. So either that's going to be from the nightingale, and at the same time I'm obviously going to be scoring a bunch of points from this wetlands, or maybe my opponent is going to be a bit more generous and use their hunting powers to hopefully give me some extra food, obviously through the pink power of the vulture. But it looks like they're just kind of focusing on their wetlands, obviously. As I said, the red knot, they did pick that up on the previous turn. And yeah, that's a pretty good option for them, I think. Being able to get that down, get lots of points, and obviously some cards as well. But we're going to truck on. We're going to keep going for this wetlands. And yeah, at this point, it almost doesn't matter too much what I draw. I'm kind of just looking for anything. Obviously, most of it's going to get tucked under these two tucking birds. But yeah, birds like the ruff, I will very, very happily grab those blind from the deck. Obviously, another bird counter bonus. So yeah, a couple of extra points for playing that. It's going to be a pretty good option, I think, to go in this grasslands. But just that passive card cycle as well. I'm almost certainly going to have some extra cards at the end of definitely the second and the third round. Maybe not so much the fourth round, but yeah, just being able to get those extra points. And as I say, that extra card cycle, really, really valuable there. So yeah, definitely happy with that. And obviously at the same time, like I say, I'm getting this food for the raven. So hopefully one more turn of going for cards, I can get that down. And then really we're away. We're just getting so many cards and points and food. It's just going to be such a strong engine. But yeah, here we go on to the next turn. And once again, I think it is just going to be going for the cards. And as I said again, not really generally too bothered about what I find from the deck. But obviously nice birds, if I can get more like the ruff, are going to be very, very welcome indeed. Brewer's Blackbird is maybe an option. If I'm thinking about some kind of late game pivot where, with filled columns, end of round goal, maybe I have a bunch of extra cards and I just want to convert those into pure points, it is an option. And of course, another bird to meet the bird counter bonus. So I'll definitely keep that in hand. I'll definitely have that as an option perhaps for later in the game. But yeah, definitely in the short term, I've got this 3 food now from this nightingale. I can easily just smash this raven down, start drawing some cards, clear out some egg space, get a bunch of food. And yeah, I think really it's going to be a case of just look to get the ruff down. Obviously, some of these extra cards are going to draw. I can then tuck at the round end. But otherwise, it's just going to be getting the ring-billed gull down as well. Maybe look for some other birds to go alongside that. But yeah, I think now my opponent obviously knows I've got the raven. They know I've got the food for the raven. So I think they are going to start to be a bit more liberal with giving the food away. Obviously, as I said before, every time they activate that barred owl, if they get a successful hunt, they're going to get a point, but I'm going to get food. So I think this is the kind of stage of the game where they're going to start thinking to themselves, that point to me is more valuable than the food that they're giving me. So yeah, I can definitely understand that, and I think in that kind of position I would definitely be looking to do the same. But here we go, raven nailed down into that wetlands. This is definitely not something I do very often, and I was trying to rack my brains as to whether I've ever done this in a tournament game, and I don't necessarily think that I have. I definitely have had wetland ravens before in just casual ELO games where I'm sort of maybe messing about a bit or just sort of experimenting and seeing what I can get to work and if it is actually a viable option. But yeah, this is not something you see very often. I think raven, I would say probably 95, maybe even 99% of the time, it's going to go in that grassland as part of some real nice grasslands engine where you're generally doing lots of tucking or just point scoring and obviously getting food alongside that. But yeah, to be able to get that down here in the wetlands was very, very nice indeed. So you see, we did get another food from the vulture there. And this is another key decision point for me because obviously with those 2 food, I could play the ruff or I could play the ring-billed gull. And I was trying to work out in my head, with that last wetland spot open, am I going to commit to this ring-billed gull or am I going to hope that I can find something better? So, maybe something like a Canada goose or any sort of discard food for Tuck's bird would be nice. So I don't commit. I decide to, just give myself a bit more time to draw some extra cards. And we find a common chiffchaff, which again is another very interesting option. Another, one of these mass tucking birds for the wetlands. So definitely going to consider keeping hold of that. But The more I kind of thought about it here, I don't know necessarily how many extra cards I'm going to have to feed a Chiffchaff. So that is going to get tucked here. I was thinking to myself, with the Sace Phoebe, that's a really good option. Obviously, I've already got 3 bowl nests down. If I play this Blackbird, that's another. You know, I've got the whole rest of the game to find some extra bowl nests. And, you know, potentially smashing that down in the last round, maybe to hit the filled columns and get a bunch of eggs. Certainly get the worms for that. Sace Phoebe is not going to be a problem at all. So, yeah, you see my opponent, they've got the collared dove. That's a nice option for them. But you'll notice I have started skipping the nightingale, so I don't want to be giving them free food. And obviously now, where that food can easily get translated into points, I definitely don't want to be doing that. But something I definitely do want to be doing is playing this rough. So yes, very important to get that down. And with 1 turn left in this round, I have some decisions to make because, you know, I look at my opponent and they don't have any eggs, but they do have food. So I'm imagining they're going to discard and lay 3 eggs. But I have the option of also laying eggs here and tying the end of round. And this is a kind of an unusual position where I actually think that's better off. I think that's a good option for me to do because, you know, not only do I get a couple of points, you know, maybe 3 points if I'm going to discard food here, which I do look to do, but I'm going to get some extra points from the end of round. So the way I think about this is I've gone from scoring 0 on the end of round and my opponent scoring 5 to both of us scoring 3. So effectively, I got 3 points from the eggs, but I also took 5 net points off my opponent by going for the end of round. So yeah, quite happy to do that. The downside was that it gave me fewer casts to tuck under the rough. I do get rid of the Sace Phoebe, but what a worthwhile trade because we are going to immediately top deck Mute Swan. So yeah, when I'm talking about saving that extra wetland spot, I'm so glad I did not commit with the ring build goal because this Mute Swan is just far superior. Obviously, it still hits the bonus card, but just being able to tuck extra cards, get that extra card cycle is, yeah, just absolutely massive. So we are quite naturally going to draw some cards. Pretty good options, to be honest. I think more options just to deny from my opponent. I was kind of thinking to myself, is it worth going for the Mockingbird over the Mute Swan? But I think all in all, the Mute Swan, as I say, is just such a better option. But it is still worth denying, obviously, the Mockingbird and definitely that Spoon Built as well from, yeah, stopping my opponent picking that up. But pretty nice turn to be able to obviously get the food through that Raven for the Mute Swan. And yeah, definitely we can look to get that down. And then the Wetlands is done. And that is such a nice position to be able to get that done. You know, basically start of round 3 here. Already got so many points on the board. And yeah, just be able to get that down. I can, obviously, when I draw cards, I'm going to be getting 3 cards. I then tuck 3 under the Mute Swan and draw 1. Now that does only leave me with 1 card. And I do need 2 to tuck under the Grackle and the Blackbird. So what you will see me doing on this next turn after I do get this Mute Swan down is I'm going to start discarding eggs. And obviously, you know, these Blackbird and the Grackle, they will fill up otherwise. So, you know, having that option of obviously discarding and then it's not losing points because every card that I get is an extra tuck under the Swan. So, you know, I'm getting extra card cycle, I'm getting the points back, and I'm saving myself the worry of running out of eggs. So, yeah, you see that's what I do. Discard the egg and immediately top deck Benelli's Eagle. And at this point when I was playing the game, I was just laughing. Sometimes all you can do is laugh because the deck is just being absolutely ridiculous. You know, so many of these birds, obviously the Raven coming up in the tray, then we get the Ruff and the Mute Swan, and now Benelli's Eagle from the top of the deck. Very, very nice indeed. And to top it all off, a Cowbird as well to maybe help out with some of our egg problems. As I say, if we are discarding 2 a turn and gaining 2 a turn from the tucking birds, we're maybe not going to have enough to play birds. But yeah, it's all just coming together so nicely here. Yeah, I almost kind of don't really know what else I'd be looking for from the deck. Just maybe some more big point birds. Obviously, I'm still getting food from this Raven, so any sort of, yeah, nice big point bonus bird. Obviously, something with high food cost to help with this end of round would be pretty nice to target. But yeah, this game at this point, for me, it just felt so on rails. And when you're in that position where it's so obvious what you do each turn, in this case, just draw cards, tuck cards, get food. You know, it's just makes the game a whole lot more enjoyable and obviously a whole lot more relaxing. Just draw birds from the deck, and yeah, when you get birds like obviously the raven and the swan and the Benelli's eagle, so easy to be able to make your mind up on what to do. And so yeah, on to our next turn. You see my opponent, they have built up a pretty nice forest. So yeah, Baltimore Oriole, they clearly feel quite happy to throw some cherries around, knowing that I can easily get food from this raven. So yeah, obviously, as I said, just straightforwardly keep drawing some cards, and we get a house sparrow, which is very, very welcome to see. Obviously, another bird that's going to hit the bird counter bonus. But yeah, this is just going to be such a nice way to turn some of this extra food into points. So, as I said before, my opponent played the Eurasian collared dove, which has a very similar power. And yeah, you know, obviously they're getting a bunch of food. They got a bunch of food earlier from my nightingale as well. So, yeah, just a way to turn those extra food that you're going to get. I mean, in this case, from my raven, if I'm maybe not so much finding all these birds that I want to be playing, I can still, put that food to good use. So, you see the cowbird is going to go. Yeah, that was a kind of tricky decision. I was still thinking to myself, maybe I can get this cowbird down, but I was thinking to myself, okay, it's late in the game. How many turns realistically is my opponent going to lay eggs? Probably not that many. And actually, the eggs that I have got, I think I can make the use out of these. 6 eggs. That's enough to play, maybe 4, maybe 5 birds. And yeah, I don't think really I'm going to have enough turns to be playing more than that. I think I want to just be running this engine, getting a huge number of tucks, obviously getting a bit of extra food from the Oriole and the Vulture, which is definitely going to help this House Sparrow. But yeah, I think I can just selectively look to use the Raven to maybe target some seeds, maybe just get the other food that I need. Such flexibility here is definitely a very nice position to be in. And so on to our next turn. And yeah, I am starting to look a little bit more closely at this end of round goal. So obviously you see my opponent, they've got a lot of food and they do have a couple of eggs. So they could very easily just go and play 2 very high food cost birds on these last 2 turns and really catch me out. So I was trying to think to myself, can I do this in an efficient way where I still maximize the points on the ruff and obviously the points on this house sparrow, which I'm definitely going to look to get down this round, while also challenging for the end of round. And I was trying to weigh up the additional points from the end of round versus maybe the extra points I could get from the house sparrow and from the ruff. Really trying to weigh all these things up. And yeah, obviously it's one of those where, maybe I go all in on the end of round and then still lose it. Or equally, I could ignore it and still come out with a tie or a win. That does quite often happen. And I think particularly in these positions where my opponent's going second, yeah, it does make it kind of harder to react and kind of see what's going to happen there. So I do go for cards. I'm just kind of maybe in the back of my mind thinking maybe I'll find a nice bluebird or some other kind of double bird to go in this grasslands alongside the house sparrow. But otherwise, like I said, I'm just looking for other nice birds. Maybe this warbler's going to be a good option, but equally just grab a bunch more seeds. And yeah, definitely with 1 turn left, I think being able to go and play this house sparrow, maximize out on the tucks from those, but also, as I say, get a few tucks on the ruff is going to be very nice indeed. And so yeah, yet another one of these bird counter birds. You see I've already got 4 down for the 8 points, so that's going to be my 5th one. And then who knows, maybe I find another. Still got this blackbird if I do continue to look to a late grasslands pivot, but yeah, I just think with this this monster wetlands I've got set up, that's probably not going to be needed. But yeah, my opponent had played the catbird, so they are going to win this end of round goal. I'm not too disappointed, as I say, to miss out. I think I'm getting extra points through these seeds on the house sparrow, and I'm definitely going to get at least 1 extra point just by having this extra bird for tucking under the ruff. So I think I can make up the points that I might have otherwise gained from tying or even winning the end of round. But equally, yeah, just sort of put myself in this nice position of being able to go into this final round with a bit more flexibility. And I can still look at the final end of round goal filled columns and think to myself, maybe I have some chance of being able to get 3 birds down. And how likely is my opponent to get to 4 filled columns? Not very. Yeah, again, I'm going to be going second there, so I can kind of maybe wait and see and decide what the best course of action is going to be. Just keep drawing birds, getting food, and getting tucks, or is it going to be worth playing some birds? But yeah, you see there, my opponent, they went catbird followed by hummingbird in the grasslands. So I am maybe expecting there to be some kind of crazy late game food spam. Obviously, if they're going to chuck 2 food a turn at me, that maybe nullifies my raven a little bit. But that's the beauty of having something like this house sparrow down, is that whatever they do, if they give me seeds, great, I can turn those into points. If they don't give me seeds, well, I could just use those as the food to play my birds, and then use the raven to get seeds, and that's still going to be turning into points for me. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how my opponent approaches this final round, if they are just going to keep laying eggs and spamming the food around. That's going to be quite interesting. But yeah, as I say, for me, I think it's just going to be a case of continuing to draw cards from the deck and see what we get. But there we go, the first food is coming through, and as I say, anytime I can get a chance to grab a seed, I know that's going to turn into a point for me. So that is pretty much a no-brainer. And yeah, with no other brown powers in their grasslands, they have no choice but to copy that hummingbird. So yeah, as I say, kind of interesting. I was trying to work out how much food discarding they were doing. Obviously, if some of these foods are going to get turned into eggs for them, or if it's just pure food to play birds. I mean, I'm kind of looking at what they've got and thinking to myself, are they going to do some kind of big double or triple wetland play? Maybe that's what all the food is for, but we'll just have to wait and see how that. So yeah, we're going to keep drawing birds, and we're going to get some nice options indeed. I think that blue-winged warbler is a no-brainer. 8 points, 7 points after the egg cost, and 2 food that I already have in my supply. So yeah, definitely a good option. And I was starting to think about skipping the raven at this point. So as I said, I have got a lot of food already. Depends how much more activations on the hummingbird they're going to do. Am I going to get some more seeds? Really, I just want to maximize off the house sparrow. But otherwise, I'm thinking having some extra eggs around, obviously they're going to be worth points at the end of the game as well. So yeah, I have options. I think I would be surprised if I have to use the raven every turn this round. I definitely think that I should be able to supplement my house sparrow with seeds, and obviously get enough food to play the birds I have in my hand without needing to use a raven. But yeah, it just depends. I'm obviously gonna have at least one more turn, I think, in this round drawing cards. So we'll see what we get. Maybe we'll get another big point bird. I've still got this Benelli's Eagle to think about playing. It's kind of a tricky one, because if I want to get points off the rough, I'm going to need cards at the end of the game. But if I play the Benelli's Eagle, I'm probably not going to have any cards. So there's a decision to be made there about, do I put the tucks on the Benelli, at which point I miss out on the rough, or do I keep the cards, at which point I'm not maximizing on Benelli? So it's a tricky decision. It's a difficult thing to think about, but we'll definitely kind of just wait and see. Obviously, draw cards again here, see what we get. Nothing too exciting from the initial draw, so we're going to tuck those 3 under the mute swan, see what we get for the last one. And it is the Sprague's Picket, which, yeah, definitely is an option. I'm sort of trying to think in my head, right, 3 turns left. Could I play the Pipit in the grasslands and then do Warbler and Benelli in the forest, hit those 3 columns, and hopefully try and at least tie, but in a better situation, win this end of round goal? And I think that definitely is a possibility. So we are going to skip the raven. I'm definitely expecting to myself that I'm going to be able to get some extra seeds. So obviously 2 worms in my inventory that can play the blue-winged warbler. I've got 2 rodents and a spare card that can play the Benelli's Eagle. And so really it's just about what other food I can get for free to play this Pipit. The bird feed at the moment is looking very, very healthy. So as long as my opponent's going to keep giving my food, I'm going to keep taking it. And definitely, yeah, I should be able to have the food, no matter what they give me, to play the Pipit, even if there's some overpaying there, but also still have those 5 seeds left over to play, or to tuck, I should say, under the sparrow. So yeah, the extra food there, as I say, very, very welcome. Shouldn't really have too many problems with with getting all these birds down. But first order of business, I think, is going to be to play this blue-winged warbler. You know, I think that's probably the highest points bird to be playing. Obviously, Benelli's eagle is also 8, but if I tuck under that, as I said before, I miss out on a tuck under the ruff. So it's still really only 8 points, and obviously costs a bit more food. So yeah, blue-winged warbler in the forest. Make sure I at least get to 2 columns. So if my opponent isn't able to get more birds down in their wetlands, I'm definitely going to be able to get that tie. But as I said, I have options, and I think definitely these last 2 turns, being able to go maybe Benelli and Pipit, or maybe play one of them and just draw cards, or maybe even just draw cards twice. I've obviously got plenty of egg space on the blackbird and the grackle, so filling up on those isn't going to be a problem, and I'm still going to get a bunch of points just through the tucking, through the mute swan, and obviously those 2 egg layers as well. So yeah, we'll see. Depends partly on what my opponent is going to do. They are still giving away this free food, and yeah, that is me sorted for food. You know, I've got 3 rodents, so even if I skip the tuck on the Benelli, I can play that. I've got a worm and a seed to play the Pipit, and I'm still going to have 5 seeds left over for the house sparrow. So yeah, this turn I decide to go with Benelli, and the way we're going to do it is 2 rodents and a tuck. And so yeah, obviously, as I said, just going to repeat myself, it doesn't matter if I use the tuck here or on the ruff, I'm still going to get the point, but this way I do at least save 1 rodent. So in the unlikely scenario that this game comes down to a food tiebreaker, I do put myself in that slightly better position. But yeah, just the way things are going, probably not going to be the case, but you never know. It's kind of always good to be prepared. So yeah, 1 turn left. As I say, I've kind of got that decision to make depending on what my opponent does. I'm definitely expecting some kind of big wetland play just because of all this food. But yeah, I can make that decision. I can kind of weigh up, you know, how many points do I get from drawing cards, you know, count up the tucks and count up the eggs, versus how many points do I get just from playing the Pipit on its own, looking at the points on the bird, the points from the end of round, and then also the potential points from the bonus card I get. So there's the big wetland play that I definitely did see coming. Great egret into Atlantic Puffin. And yeah, that tells me play the Pipit, you're going to tie the end of round goal, and you're going to get a very nice bonus card as well. Ethologist, that for me is the dream bonus card to pick up late in the game. You're almost always going to get at least 4 points from that, and you take that every day of the week from a last turn bonus card. So that was very, very nice. That means the Pipit was 2 points on its own, plus 3 from the end of round goal, plus 4 from the Ethologist. Yeah, that to me is a very nice final play. And obviously all those seeds are going to get chucked away under the house sparrow. We tie the end of round goal, and of course go into the final scores. So this is just such a nice game. Like I said before, everything just felt very much on rails, felt very natural, a little bit of decision making here and there. But yeah, very, very nice indeed to play. Lots of bird points, lots of bonus card points, decent number of end of round goal points. So we are slightly behind here, obviously through the eggs and the food on cards, but this is where all the money is to be made. This is where all the points are going to come through. Watching these tuck cards count up, and it's 130 points in the end to 108. So yeah, very, very strong game. As I said, plenty of luck from the deck, you know, not the least getting the Raven and the Swan, obviously the Benelli's Eagle. But yeah, it was just such a nice setup, and definitely some interesting points. You know, as I said at the time, when the Killdeer comes up and you think to yourself, do I pivot? Do I go for the Grasslands? I'm definitely very happy that I stuck with the Wetlands here, and yeah, managed to make the Wetland Raven pay off in this situation. So there we have it, first World Cup group game in the books, and it is a win on the board, which is very, very nice indeed. So thank you everyone for watching. If you want to stay up to date with the World Cup campaign, please do consider subscribing. I'll be posting plenty more gameplay content from this tournament.